saw you at coffee.
I thought you
Sorry,
did.
down there, I wanted to see if you guys. Right down there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I started like, okay, so now.
Or option.
So I can look at the car.
All right, we are going, I
Drive by the-
can get your guys'
She got a
attention.
corner flip it like, okay.
We're gonna start the congressional hearing on trade policy. So I am going to take a back seat. These guys are in charge, so if anybody's out of order, they have the power to get respect and maintain order here. So, yeah, I'm going to turn the time over to them, so.
Option one.
Yeah, can we get option one group here?
No.
I thought we told you guys.
We had an agreement.
Now I'm just going to get Alright.
So,
We're option one.
So, our belief is that the
Option three, sorry.
okay. Rewind it and say it again. Good morning. So, our option illustrates that the United States economy should remain on top. We believe this because if the United States economy were to fall, it would put the entire world economy in disarray, fighting to claim the top spot that has now been lost.
We believe this can be achieved by upholding the free trade because the U.S. economy gains a lot from free trade, and so if free trade were to be taken away, then so would the U.S. economy.
We also believe with the free trade that tariffs should be lowered, endorsing more competition between foreign markets and ourselves.
So, the more trade that we have, it'll just like make our economy grow even more, and that'll help us maintain like our top spot. You know what I mean? And it will rise an international system.
And then with that growth, it would also allow us to be able to help other nations if need be, as well as the fact that if we look at it from a different perspective, if United States was just a family versus like all the other families, you would want to take care of your family versus going out to help someone else's before yours.
Okay, so for the first question is, with keeping free trade open, a lot of people in America are going to be losing their jobs, so how are you going to compensate for people who their companies have now moved abroad, but they aren't being offered jobs abroad?
That's going to be the beauty of it. It's going to be survival of the fittest. So with the lower income jobs such as manufacturing being shipped overseas, it'll increase the supply of college graduates looking for jobs such as insurance, such as baking, and etc., increasing the U.S. market for those industries.
So when you move your companies abroad, are you going to be adopting the same low safety standards and wage standards and child labor laws as those countries face, or are you going to stick with American policies abroad, or are you going to adopt their policies?
We're going to try to find a balance between the two. We'll try to find it, because the same standard of living doesn't transfer across the world. So, for example, in China, they're getting paid cents on the hour, but they're also living a lot better. If you actually look at the companies such as Apple that are employing the Chinese, yeah, they're not making as much as an American worker would make for a factory here. But their standard of living compared to the surrounding community is a lot higher.
So then you said something about raising tariffs. So when you raise the tariffs, how are you gonna keep the people in America? Because when you raise tariffs, the price that we're all paying at stores and stuff goes up for us. So it's good for the government, but not as good for the smaller people who aren't as well off. So how are you gonna like compensate for that and keep the prices low if you're raising tariffs?
I apologize, I meant to state lower tariffs, so that's where that came from.
It is open to the floor. Anyone have any questions? Very interactive crowd.
Yeah, we are.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
good job, I appreciate it.
About human rights in there. good.
You alright? Must be how they get it. It's alright, I'll just take it over. That's when you off, just say how much.
Is that tiring strap? Is this a billet bag?
Does it hurt your arm?
That's why I've got the book.
Does it hurt your arm?
Not like this.
Are you getting like more PT?
Why don't you get like a selfie stick and like just like stand sitting there?
We'll invest a tripod for you.
Yeah. Actually, I have a selfie stick in my car right now. If you want me to go get it.
Yeah.
Well, no, cause like you could take it to the table and then just.
Right on the whiteboard. I had to hold my elbow up to write. Actually, I still barely can.
Yeah.
May we have option 2 to the side?
You said the first time.
No, he's higher.
I would love to do that.
60% sure to send that.
Alright, let's get this.
60%.
No guarantee.
Go for it.
Alright, so we are option 2, 5th period. The United States has been built on workers who have used their blood, sweat, and tears to bring home a paycheck to help their family go day by day without worrying about having to put food on the table. Free trade is destroying that and hurting the lives of Americans that have built this nation. Without the small and minimum wage jobs in the economy, the U.S. would be nothing. Millionaires in the U.S. are part of the economy, but they are slim to none if they are taking jobs overseas out of this country. What we need in this country is more favorable terms under the WTO to protect the U.S. businesses and more programs to retrain and better the lives of workers. And we need more taxes on companies to keep them in the U.S. And this country has been built on people that work hard and fight for what's right.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're saying that free trade is destroying, everything. So when you raise the U.S. trade barriers, it'll push out other countries to raise theirs as well. So what will you do to, so you're pushing out to keep out outside competition. How will you ensure that the prices of our products will stay low and not go up when we're trying to compete with other places?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. So when you're putting up the barriers to keep out the outside competition, how will you ensure that our prices don't rise as well, since it won't be as cheap from doing it abroad? How will you keep your prices low? Do you want me to explain it differently, or
Yeah, can you explain it differently?
Okay, so putting up barriers is going to not allow jobs to go overseas and abroad, and it's going to make it more expensive to produce products in the United States. How will you keep your prices low, so that way it can supply the daily demand, but also keep it at a reasonable price, so that way our economy doesn't go down because people stop buying things?
If we end up rising up those barriers, it will increase the number of jobs, which will end up balancing out the economy, because it will keep the economy down because nobody's going to keep buying stuff up. But if we raise barriers, people are going to get more jobs, which is going to stick more to the U.S., which will get more jobs out.
Will that keep the prices lower, though? Are
Well,
you
prices
guys?
will be raised, but there'll be more jobs and more people buying items.
If you're putting up the barriers to keep jobs inside the United States, how will you maintain relationships with other countries now that you will not be importing and exporting with them?
Well, countries that we work with that build our products are not countries that we buy stuff from. Not huge suppliers of stuff that we buy stuff from. Because we're not having things mass produced in Canada. And Canada is one of our biggest suppliers. So it's not hurting relations with people that are huge to our economy.
Okay. is open to the floor. Anybody have any questions?
Right.
All right, well, good job.
That's pretty embarrassing. My speech was terrible.
I know, okay. Not in
This
America.
I've done before with US, when I was teaching US history, the court martial in Cali, the My Lai massacre in Vietnam, putting the lieutenant on trial. That was kind of fun. Was it justifiable what happened or not? Was he the fall guy? Who should be responsible?
So I was like, I just left.
How does she know? Oh, wait. No, I'm saying like, how does she know?
I got, Maggie sent me the stuff for the interview. It said, if you're just the second session interviews, am I doing both sessions? I don't know if I saw, I was looking to see if they had a, I guess I was assuming it was both. I didn't know if there was one or the other.
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Rockwell. Is hot.
Yep.
Goes by Rollins.
And then about 15, we'll all come together and we'll look at the budgets, the goals, the assignments. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at the attachments.
I haven't looked, I barely looked
Can
at
we
stuff.
have option 3?
Oh my God, that's
please?
Okay.
We're hoping that the interviewers have a chance to orient
Good luck.
themselves to the
Right.
it, won't need it.
Oh, that was lean.
on those.
Right.
That was forcible shit.
That we get it structured and then we send it. It won't just be on one sheet within an explicit order.
Persuade us. Okay, so we're option 3, and our option is that the U.S. will not trade with any other companies that do not have the same values and standards on human, workers, policies, and on a clean environment. As the U.S., we are a powerhouse of economic boom, so we should be able to show an example to other countries to trade with them, and showing reasons why we trade with them. Also, many people have brought up these issues of child labor or environmental degradation, but no country has ever stepped up to be able to do something about it. So as the U.S., we are going to be able to show that example to other countries and make beneficial changes. Because what one country does affects the whole world, and we need to be able to protect the world.
There's a simple question that goes along with it. Why can't the United States just have lower standards to meet with everyone else? And it's basically along the lines that this leads to political and economic destruction, no matter what. If you don't have standards, if you're not looking out for the society and the environment, there will be consequences for these people, for all of these countries.
The United States doesn't recognize that there are more important things in society than the benefits of free trade or the protection of U.S. workers.
When you look around, you see why child labor is going up. It's because they're going to destroy our business, but we're not going to let that happen. Because the same thing happens as child labor increases, immigration increases in other countries as well. They aren't wanting to live with those standards. So in our way, we kind of look at it as no one wants these low standards anyway, so why compete against it? Why not rise to the same level? Why can't everyone be here with us?
So are you guys only working with countries that have the same standards as you guys, or are you gonna help other?
Exactly that.
Help others? So how are you gonna provide the finances for that, to upkeep with the environmental?
You start working with higher standards, prices lower immediately. You don't have to pay for health stuff. There's less pollution going on in the air. You don't need to fix up the environment for one. If you take care of yourself in the beginning, there's nothing to pay for in the end because everything is already taken care of. Everything's already sought after.
Okay, well, that is like a good concept and stuff, but in reality, these countries that don't have the same standards as us, there's reasons why they don't have the same standards as us, and that's because some of them don't have the financial capability to get to those standards. They don't have the office building, they don't have the space, they don't have like the adults and all of that stuff. So how are you, if you're saying that you want them to raise their standards, you need to be financially supporting these people?
It is. It's going to open up it's the only reason that it will open up trade with them.
But how are you gonna finance them without ruining our economy?
How would that ruin it really wouldn't ruin our economy. It's getting business that we have never had before.
But we can't raise their standards without providing money to them, so how are you gonna separate the money that's helping us? So how are you gonna help all of these countries without hurting us in the same way? Because we can take care of ourselves and we can take care of some other countries, but how are you gonna ensure that we're still able to take care of ourselves and the other countries?
So basically what you're telling me is that you put money over your society?
No,
and I
I'm
think
not-
that's a horrible concept to live on.
Well, that's not my opinion.
See, that's where
but it's just
option
reality.
3 comes in acceptance for other countries. We accept each other. If there is financial instability, we can rise to meet the middleman. We can get to a point where there isn't gonna be a deficit or a debt to work on.
But while we do have that debt, and I'm not giving my opinion on what I think we should do, but I'm just saying, how are you gonna get us out of our debt and help all of the other countries as well?
Where's the money coming from exactly?
Trade.
Just trading? So if you're only trading with countries that are, like, have as high standards, which isn't very many, we're not gonna be making as much trading.
But you see, it backfires the other way because economically, politically, these countries will destroy themselves without even trying. They won't have anywhere to look for. They want the US to be a big brother type, and we want to be accepting of that answer. We want to be able to help, but they have to be willing to rise and help themselves as well.
So what about countries that don't necessarily want the US help and they like the way their economy is? How are you gonna persuade them and talk to them to follow you and not just impose that on them?
Well, in the beginning, we really don't. If they're going down that path, they will politically and economically destroy themselves. So they're not going to have any other places to trade high goods with. They're not going to be able to get high commands of resources. There's going to be people trying to stop them for one. There's going to be pollution arising throughout every country that this happens in. It really will just destroy itself at the beginning.
Do any of you guys have anything else to say about it?
Yeah, and just people.
No, I'm not, like, I'm trying to get everyone to talk, I'm not, sorry.
No, but people, they want these standards. People don't wanna be unhealthy, working long hours and having children work. Like, that's not what people want. So people are gonna turn to immigration, people are living in poverty and injustice, and they're gonna leave those countries eventually. So it's, in itself, what Jonah was saying, it's gonna destroy itself.
So what about countries like China who do have lower standards than us and do have child labor but have a booming economy right now? How are you going to convince them to lower how well their economy is doing just because they don't fit our moral standards? Because we don't have the best economy right now, so how are we gonna convince people to lower themselves and how well their country's doing because of our beliefs?
There is something around in our option that said we can meet them at a certain point as well. Like, they don't have to meet the highest standard of working conditions. Like, as a place like China, they have the population to control their workforce. We don't. That's why that's why our conditions aren't that low. They have population to replace and to replace.
Yeah, so why would they change?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's some countries that we can meet a middleman with. They won't have to raise their standards as high. Because they are one reason, China especially is one reason, they can't destroy themselves really because of their population growth and how high it is.
So when you mean by middleman, if I can ask a question.
Yeah.
What do you exactly mean by middleman?
Just unnumbered to be even on.
With the same country?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's no debt, there's no surplus. There could be surplus if you want, but.
Josh, go ahead.
Well, I was wondering, your argument completely just changed.
What do you mean?
You said 5 minutes ago that you want to trade only with people that have the same standards as us, and then 2 minutes ago you said you want to trade with people
No,
that have
that's
people
you.
that standards that are.
I think you've misunderstood everything that I've said.
Oh,
I said if we're not going to trade with low standard countries. China, you can call a low standard country, but they're definitely not a low standard country. They have workforce that is able to provide and help their own families. Like, they don't go home and die. Like, that is the workforce of some countries because they can't even live in these conditions. China is one of the exceptions that we look to just because of their population as an acceptance for bad conditions, even though they're not that bad.
So if you're saying that you're not going to trade with these lower standard countries, then you're saying they're just not going to trade with them, they're not going to make money, and eventually their nation's just going to fall apart. And they're just
What did I say in the beginning? Exactly. They will just politically and economically.
So you're alright with leaving a country out stranded, and
They're all right with
just to trade with countries that have higher standards.
They're all right with leaving themselves in that position. They wouldn't even want to try.
But what if
They have
If they don't have the-
they have no money to be able to try.
That's what the trade is for. It could be a.
But if you can't trade, then you don't get money.
That's what you start to raise your standards. Trade will begin to happen. Everything will happen at the same time. It's literally like a trade. It literally is trade, bartering. We give you higher standards. You give us your everything.
And people are not willing to live like that anymore.
Yeah, they really aren't. That's why.
Well, if they're not
watch
willing to
them
live like
flee
that,
the
then why
country
are there
for
people
country.
living like that right now?
Because they have no other choice at this point.
Okay, then if they don't have a choice right now, but they have money coming in, then how is it going to go better when they don't have any money coming in?
So are you talking about the rich population or the people who can't even live there for one day in their life?
I'm talking about the countries that have low standards that you want to leave out. So when you leave them out, they have no money coming in, and when they have no money coming in, since at the moment they can't do anything for themselves, but they have money, what are they going to do when they don't have any money?
They will continue to have money because they're going to.
How would they continue to have money when they're not making
They'll be in a
trade?
position where they're not having to deal with all the uncertainty in their working force.
Is that where you're
Yep.
saying the money's going to helping them?
Yeah.
Get other, okay, cool. I'm glad we talked about that issue. Sorry. We have another question. It was
Go
really,
ahead.
it was good. It was good. Okay. So if you're not, if you do not want to adopt the other country's poor working standards and low wages, at what point of the moving in your company abroad would manufacturing costs now be the same? Okay, 1 second.
Okay, well, I actually have another question. So, if you say that China is okay with the way their standards are because of their population, but a lot of other countries with lower population also have child labor and excessive hours just like China does, how can you tell these countries, like, we're okay with what China does, but we're not okay with what you do? So how are you gonna make it clear to them that it's due to their, like, population? And how are you going, if you're saying that you're not going to trade with them, but you want them to rise, and until they rise, you won't trade with them, how are they gonna get funds to rise to what your standards are?
Put a simulation right in front of their face. You can simulate how horrible that it will turn out for them.
Well, but even if they see that, if they're in a position that they can't do anything about it because of their finances, how much are you going to help them?
As much as it takes for them to at least have some sort of good conditions to be working in.
So you'll provide them finances to grow themselves?
A good amount, but not a great amount. It's going to, like I said, it's going to be a barter. We'll give you what you need for your higher standards. You give us what we need in return. More trade for us, more business for us.
Okay, alright.
Very good.
Yeah, very good. Good job, guys.
Anything like that.
Two alpha males.
I got targeted. And that's how you should never think
That was good.
Yeah, it was. It was fun.
Have you
ask a question, Gonzo.
You guys can start when you're ready.
Are you sure? Okay. Okay, so obviously we're option 4. We're for the U.S. adopting more free trade, fair trade, not free trade. That's kind of what we're against. So with fair trade, it's more a system where it works globally for everyone. Whereas our free trade system right now, there's very clear winners and losers. And a lot of what we're about is trying to help smaller businesses, all businesses mostly, but right now there's a big advantage for larger companies in the US. And kind of like the last group, we're trying to help promote the US working conditions all around the globe. Yeah.
So, the way that this option would help the U.S. economy, for one thing, it would promote greater productivity and working conditions, and it would improve the international opinion about us. So it would make us more of a leader, a role model in the World Trade Organization. So we could actually help change how things are run.
Okay, so with more fair trade, it will mostly benefit poor people in developing countries, which will reduce the amount that we invest in foreign aid. And although a lot of U.S. jobs may be lost, there will also be, we can put in programs that help train people for jobs. If they've only had one job their whole life or only know how to do one job, we can provide more job training for them so that they can be able to get back on their feet and get more higher paying jobs.
And we would also want to work with the WTO to help establish an international minimum wage. So that way the poor countries can actually live on what they are paid and reduce the trade borders so it opens it up.
For more trade.
Yeah.
So with the U.S. helping other countries, like our fall through the cracks of the international trade, how do we help those countries without hurting ourselves too much?
Well, yeah, that's what we're trying to, with the WTO, with the fair trade, that's kind of the goal, is we're trying to make it internationally. Everyone is who we're trying to help out, but not just through okay, we're gonna give you aid money. It's we're gonna help you with trade.
Okay, so you're gonna help them train for jobs to help them better themselves?
Right.
Okay, so you're gonna make it like everyone's on a fair competition rather than winners, here are the losers.
It's kind of what free trade is.
So with us losing profit, how will we keep other foreign countries from rising above us if we go from free trade to fair trade?
Solid question. Well.
Okay, so since we're becoming more helpful to the global community, we'll be more like a role model for people. So it doesn't matter if we're on top anymore. I mean, we'll still be pretty close, but since we'll be more equal than before.
I think to clarify, maybe is by helping other countries, it's not really going to affect, it's not going to bring us down. It's more just going to kind of even the playing field a little bit.
Okay, so you're saying instead of us giving so much aid without anything in return, we're going to help them train them in these kind of jobs, like farmers,
right.
More money for that.
Well, not just not so much money, but other things that they're going to need. Right.
Yeah. Okay, so the necessities, not the wants. More the needs and less the wants.
Wait, so you, oh, sorry.
So you're trying to help other countries by, can you explain, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, well, it's just, so we're trading with them. We're getting something in return for helping train them, giving them stuff to do, I guess agriculture is one we're talking about a lot, so whatever they need for agriculture.
So how exactly is that happening?
Well, we're gonna remove subsidies and tariffs pretty much. Just get rid of all those so so the competition is more equal.
All right, and that's what subsidies and, yes, those. They're artificially bringing down the prices for a lot of the US, foods, I guess. So if we just take those out, then it's gonna kinda even it out globally, so it's all kinda on the same scale.
So are we looking to benefit the United States or make the rest of the world more fair to be us?
Both.
So are we bringing people to us, or are we bringing people to us while we're bringing us down?
Bring people
Yeah.
to us.
That's what I just said, we're not bringing ourselves down, we're just trying to even the playing field by bringing everyone else up.
So how exactly is that benefiting us? Like, in your situation, how would you benefit, this entire thing benefit?
Well, a stronger global economy is good for the US, you know?
Yeah, more trading.
Well, if everybody's the same as us, then what is there to trade?
Well, it's not everyone's the same as us, cause there's, I don't know off the top of my head, but there's obviously things like in Africa, stuff that we don't have, there's stuff here that they don't have in Africa, cause that's kind of the whole trade thing.
Can you give me an example of that stuff?
Kind of like I just said, not off the top of my head.
I have a question. So, if we were to create a standardized price for, say, corn throughout the world, wouldn't that create all these different companies are selling corn at the same price? Then how are we promoting competition and trying to get down to the lowest price, improving the economy as a whole, if we're at one standardized price? That kind of seems more of a socialist or a communist.
We're not advocating standardized price, we're just.
Well, to advocate standardized price is to make everybody equal and fair, just like us.
Well, but it's not like socialism where it's like everybody has to be equal, we have to have the same economy.
Well,
I think maybe that's
how do you call it fair if not everybody's equal? Because when you look at let's say a fair sports game.
Just knock harder.
You look at
Hey guys, sorry, it's a really good conversation.
Oh yeah.
It's great, it's really, we had a couple more questions, maybe it'll kind of follow along that.
Oh
Yeah.
Shelby can't believe it.
First,
We're
huh?
just low on time, I just wanted to pat you.
Yeah, just a little bit of time,
I think
just not.
Luke has something to say.
Okay, so if it says that you're eliminating subsidies to agricultural products and you're reducing the tariffs on imported goods, how are you going to support the lower community, like farmers and stuff like that, people that make their money solely from America, and so like smaller businesses, if you're eliminating all of their subsidies that usually do help them compete, how are you gonna keep them afloat as well?
Okay, so subsidies aren't usually used on smaller local farms. They're more for bigger corporations. So if you remove the subsidies for the big corporations, it makes it so the smaller farms can actually sell their goods.
I think we might have touched on it, but I'm just gonna reiterate, I guess. So we're gonna be cutting into our corporate profits from you guys trying to open the playing field to other greater. But like doing that, it's going to, like another economy, I guess, can emerge and come out on top of us. So instead of making us equal and bringing them up to us, they could potentially pass us. What are you going to do to keep it even instead of having just pass us, you know?
I got this one. No, I was asking.
Good job, guys. You guys are amazing.
We have to turn this in.
Yeah, no, we're